please give a warm welcome to Dan Colman.
Hey. So my first division officer tour in the Navy was as a surface warfare officer on board the USS John Hancock, and it was terrible. I had decided that I was either going to get out of the Navy or I was going to do something different. And I had grown up in sunny places, Florida, Hawaii, Guam. I was a great swimmer, lifeguard, and I decided I wanted to be a Navy diver. I had qualified as a scuba diver as a kid, and I remember one time on the John Hancock looking over the side at these Navy divers who just looked happy. And I thought, there was one Navy diver, he had 10 digits on his t-shirt, and I shouted down to him, and I said, hey, what are the 10 digits? And he said, hey, that's my phone number, so if there's any girl that just wants to give me a call and ask me for a date, then that's all she's got to do is just give me a call. And I said, well, I really want to be a part of that community. So I applied for dive school and was accepted. And when I got to dive school from the diving standpoint was a breeze. If it was deep, dark, and dangerous, I had no problem with it. But I was not built for speed or pull-ups. I really sucked at running and pull-ups. My dive school instructor, his nickname was Razor Dan. Now, Razor Dan was the epitome of a Navy diving chief petty officer. He was extremely fit. He was lean. He could run like the wind. And if you've ever seen the movie The Men of Honor, and you know the character Robert De Niro played was a Master Chief Billy Sunday, who was the typical Master Chief, really grass character. We combine that personality with a guy that could run like the wind, and this is Razor Dan. Well, Razor Dan met us every morning by the pull-up bar, and we would practice our pull-ups, and then he would shout, 2 rows of corn, that way. That meant that we were going to form up in 2 columns, and we were going to take off on an Indian run. Now, an Indian run is when the last guy in the row sprints to the front of the pack, and you keep doing that until he gets tired of doing it. Well, for Razor Dan, that was rare. So finally, it would get to be my turn, and I would sprint as hard as I could, which would be not very fast, and I had a problem where I could try to inhale and exhale at the same time, and the body doesn't do that. So Razor Dan would teach me 3 lessons during dive school, and the first lesson is the only easy day was yesterday. Well, if the only easy day was yesterday and today's really hard, what is tomorrow going to be like? Well, I could tell you tomorrow was going to be really hard. So the cycle would repeat. Razor Dan would meet us by the pull-up bars. We'd come out, practice our pull-ups. He'd shout, 2 rows corn, that way. Only the movie Forrest Gump had come out, and guess what? My name is Dan, I was lieutenant. Lieutenant Dan, to the front of the pack. So we would take off, and they would try to push me from behind. And I would get my second lesson from Razor Dan, and that is pain is weakness leaving your body. And I can tell you, pain was not weakness. Pain was being ripped from my body. And it didn't want to let go. So the cycle would repeat for a 3rd time. Razor Dan would meet us by the pull-up bars. We'd form up. 2 rows of corn that way. Lieutenant Dan to the front of the pack. Only this time we weren't going to do an Indian run. We were just going to do a long run. Razor Dan put me in the front of the pack. We would take off, and sure enough, I'd start to drift to the back of the pack, and before I knew it, I couldn't even see my class. They were just so far in front of me. And before I knew it, I'm by myself, and then I hear Razor Dan run up next to me as I'm choking the air out of me. And I swear to you, I have my own officer and a gentleman moment with Razor Dan. Was Razor Dan shouts to me, Lieutenant Dan, why are you here? And I swear I had to say to him, I literally have no place else to go. Because I had decided I was doing this or I was getting out. So then Razor Dan gives me my third Navy lesson, and he tells me it's mind over matter. You don't mind because you don't matter. And then he takes off like a bat out of hell. And I thought to myself, I actually stopped, and I thought, is that an insult? And then I started to jog, and then I thought, no, it's a lesson in resilience. I didn't know it then, but in the future, I was going to lose sailors to diving accidents. I was going to lose sailors to Iraq and Afghanistan. I was going to lose sailors' limbs, and I was going to have to be able to deal with something that was way harder than running. Oh, that's pretty deep. So I finished the run. Finally, it's the dive school graduation PT. Thanks to Razor Dan, I passed the run. Push-ups were not a problem. Sit-ups were not a problem, but 6 dead hang pull-ups were going to be a problem. So I lined up to do my 6 dead hang pull-ups, and Razor Dan jumps in front of me. He's going to count my dead hang pull-ups. It's not going to be easy. So I'm hanging from the bar, and I pull myself up. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Razor Dan says, no hang. And I thought, uh-oh. That one doesn't count. And I know what you all are thinking. Beat that wall. Sorry, that's a different show. So I muster the strength, and I get that 5th one. And I'm sitting there, my grip is starting to come loose, and my arms are shaking. And my classmates, they really rallied around me. They started to shout, you don't mind, because you don't matter. You don't mind, because you don't matter. And I said, okay, I'm going to get this. So I got the strength, and I got that 6 pull-up. I dropped off the bar. I graduated dive school, and I went on to serve as a Navy diver, EOD officer, for 30 years, 4 months, 25 days. And I owe every bit of that start to Navy Chief Petty Officer Razor Dan. And for all those that are senior enlisted in the audience, the responsibility belongs to mentoring junior officers like myself. So to them I say thank you. And I see a shipmate in the audience. Thank you. Thank you.